Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
I'm down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
Welcome to Down with D&D. I'm Shawn Merwin, and today our guest host is an amazing D&D mind and one of the most entertaining players I've ever shared a table with, Celeste Conowitch. Celeste, thank you so much for coming online to talk today.
Oh, heck yeah. Whoops. Oh, heck yeah. No, I'm super excited to be here and glad to be hanging out with you again,
Yeah.
Shawn. This
I
is
know.
awesome.
We've only met in person a couple of times, but we've spent a lot of time talking recently.
Yes.
For
Yes.
various projects. So I was super excited to have you on the show. And so when I first heard about you, it was your live stream show, Venture Maidens.
Yes.
And you even got interviewed at Dragon Talk a couple years ago.
I did, yeah.
But since then, you've started publishing material as well. You've contributed to products on the DMs Guild like Villains and Layers, like 2, 3, 4, 8, 12.
Yep. The whole series.
Taverns,
Yeah.
yep. Taverns, inns, and tap rooms in hell. Our favorite place to go to.
Yes, of course.
Taverns, inns, and tap rooms, especially since we can't.
You really need a drink when you're down
Yes.
there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beyond the Basics and the 12 Days of Midwinter. And you're also involved in a Kickstarter that's happening right now called The Ultimate Guide to Hair. A supplement to die for. And, of course,
Yes.
die is spelled D-Y-E.
Of course.
So my first question I have to ask, hair, really?
Oh, yes. I know. I love this question because when I tell people what this Kickstarter is about, they're like, what? But stick with me because
Okay.
hair is like a ubiquitous thing, right? Especially in fantasy. You know, we always picture these people with gorgeous, like long flowing locks and like just interesting character definitions through hair. So it seemed like kind of a natural step to give hair all these magic and fantastical qualities for Dungeons and Dragons.
True. I mean, you got Rumpelstiltskin, right? You have...
Oh yeah, I mean,
all-
fairy tales, but then also like just like you also have like awesome action movies where like monks attach razor blades to their braids and like attack people. There's like so much of the stuff in in pop culture.
True. So I have to ask, for those of us who are follicularly challenged,
Yes.
let's say,
Yes.
can we still buy this book and still feel good about ourselves?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have a bunch of, so this book covers like new magic items, new subclasses, new spells, like really everything. There's a ton of monsters in there as well. But we've also introduced some new deities to the book, including a deity of baldness,
Nice.
which is, so it's a whole pantheon and cleric based on, meticulously keeping yourself clean shaven or without hair.
Excellent.
So we've really covered all ends of the spectrum here.
I now have a new deity to worship.
There you go.
Write that down. Now that you mention it, there was a monster in older editions called the Korred, Korred.
Ooh, yes.
That had like an attack with his hair, and that just came to mind.
They did the Korred in
Did they?
Volo's Guide.
Okay, cool. That's
Yeah.
I'm glad. So that's in there.
The really cool fey creature that's they're sort of like the Tangela Pokemon, if
Yeah.
you're familiar with it. Yeah, and you're like, whoa, what's going on?
Sweet.
Oh yeah, we had a test game we did the other day, and I made something called a Rapunzelite demon, where basically they open up a chest cavity and they have like a braid that they weave together of the hair of their victims that grows ever longer the more people they kill, and then they wield it as a weapon. At first it sounds like a very silly idea, and there totally is silly stuff in this book, but it's also like it really does cover a huge range of things. It's amazing what you can do with hair.
Okay. Well, that Kickstarter will still be going on when this airs, so listeners, go check that out on Kickstarter.
Till April 10th.
That's right. So it's the Ultimate Guide to Hair.
Heck yeah.
So I want to talk to you a little bit just about your history with D&D. I ask all my co-hosts this. When did you start? Why do you keep playing? What do you love so much about role-playing games and D&D? So give us a little bit of that history, if you would.
Yeah, so I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for 15 years, I think. The first time when I started playing, it was because I discovered a box of stuff that my dad had like left in the garage, and it was a ton of his old AD&D books and like notebooks and character sheets. And immediately when I found out, I was like, wow, this is, oh my God, what is this? And at the time, I really didn't have anyone else in my life who played games or anything, so I started running them for my friends, like, at school. And it's always, taken off from them. Since 15 years ago, I've been the perpetual DM, always organizing campaigns for my friends. And then in the last, 4 years ago, I started Venture Maidens, which is an actual play D&D podcast. And that was, like, right at the time when, I don't know, we were all like figuring out that podcasts were a cool thing and that you could play games with them. I think so. Venture Maiden started like, I think 2 weeks into like the Adventure Zone when I heard that for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, whoa, like people will listen to us playing Dungeons and Dragons. And then my second thought was, wow, I wish there were voices that sounded like mine, femme voices playing Dungeons and Dragons. So I went and made Venture Maidens. And then I guess in the last year, I've started getting into writing Dungeons and Dragons, and it's been a whirlwind. I've like published over 15 things just in the last 6 months, and ever growing. So I guess that's sort of my story.
Yeah. So when you decided to start the Venture Maidens, was this a group that you've already played with, or did you build it specifically for the stream?
Yeah, so I was really lucky. I mean, all the Venture Maidens, I had taught them how to play D&D at various points over the last few years. Okay. So Nasim, who's one of my players, I've known her for over 12 years. We actually met in high school. So, and all of the maidens have been friends, like, through my life like that. And then when I wanted to start Venture Maidens, we had all, like, kind of moved away. So we all lived, all over the U.S. And I was like, man, well, I really want to keep playing with everybody. How can I do that? And I was like, yes, we can live stream our games. We can use, conferencing software, and we can make a podcast, and we can still play together, even though we live very far apart.
Right. So when you decided to do this, how much of your non-gaming life did you have to bring to bear to do, to the technology, the planning, the marketing, all of that stuff?
Oh yeah. We dove in feet just into that pool right away. I don't think any of us expected exactly how much work it would take or what exactly that would look like. The learning curve to get started was very, very large because, 4 years ago, people didn't just have a microphone casually around. We were, trying to figure out how to use headsets and, using Google Hangouts and just trying to make it all work and, trying to edit and record and then, edit locally. And it was a very steep learning curve that took up a lot of my evenings.
Okay.
Especially in the beginning.
Right. So you weren't like a video technician or an audio technician to start with.
None of us knew
up.
anything about microphones. I don't think any of us had ever done a video conference before.
Oh, wow.
We had IM. That was the extent of online communication. I remember. I got onto things like Twitter and Instagram and all that because of Venture Maidens. I wasn't exactly a social media savant or anything at that point. Yeah.
Cool. And so then you've made this transition now from doing the show to writing. Yeah. When you started the show, did you first of all think people are actually going to watch this?
I did. I always knew that what we had was special and interesting. At that time, I believe... if we weren't the first all-female and non-binary D&D actual play podcast, then we were definitely one of the first.
Right.
Which already I was like, oh man, this market of people who because D&D can be, not so much in recent years, but it has traditionally been hard for new people to approach, mostly because like the archetype of who used to play Dungeons and Dragons was very much white old guys or white mean guys or creepy guys. So when we started Venture Maiden, I was like, yes, I already know like this is going to have an audience of people who just want like to hear women and non-binary folks who play games and like do it in a fun and cool way. So I knew we had something special, and then the fact that we had all like already been so close, and I did get to hand select of the friends I have made along the way and play Dungeons and Dragons with. I was like, who's going to be an amazing team? Yeah. These people, and I got them together, and it was just session one. It was magic, and
And I mean, I've now. You've DM'd for me online.
I know. Oh my gosh! The first time that happened, I was so scared, Shawn. I was like, "What? Shawn Merwin's gonna be in my game?"
Oh
like,
yes, because I'm terrifying and intimidating. And then we also played at 2 years ago at PAX Unplugged. We sat and played a game Jeff Stormer ran.
Yes.
I forgot the game where you play.
It was
kind of like a corporate.
It's spies, after a mission that's gone wrong.
Right. And so you're telling the story of the mission that's gone wrong to your corporate bosses who are like all interested in budget and, why did you spend all this money? And you're kind of trying to throw each other under the bus a little bit because someone is going to die at the end of this. And it was so much fun. You and Lisa Chen kind of going back and forth with each other, being a little snippy toward each other.
Oh yeah,
it was so funny.
The first time we met in real life, but we had already signed a lease to live together the following month. So that was like our first in-person interaction. Was this snippy us like throwing each other under the spy boss game, and I was like, this is going to work out.
This is going to work out well. That shows you our industry in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
You're signing up to live with this person who you've never met in person.
Yep.
And the first time you meet them, you are like going at it tooth and claw.
Yeah, in an RPG game.
In this RPG game.
Yeah.
It was an amazing experience. And since then, we've actually had a chance to work together on a D&D project, which was kind of kiboshed a bit thanks to the coronavirus outbreak. We worked on a competitive event set in the Eberron world called A Blinking Light with pre-generated characters, and you play through this story. It probably will not be premiering at GaryCon because GaryCon is no longer happening, although a virtual version is. And you can go to GaryCon's website and look at that, folks. But so I got a chance to work with Celeste, and just the great creativity that I saw you DMing and playing with carried through to your writing. And I want to know, how did you feel that transition went from, being a DM for many years to now having to be the person whose work is going to be read and used by others? Did you feel that was a natural progression for you, or did you have to fight it at all?
For me, I guess it felt very mixed results. So at first, it felt very natural for me to step into writing adventures. I've been doing that for 15 years. Every session is its own little mini arc adventure story packet. Cool. Mm-hmm. So the ideas were automatically there for me when I started picking up projects and everything. The steep learning curve came with learning the rules and the style of writing for Dungeons and Dragons, because those things are very different than creative writing or writing for novels. And I got real hard smack in the face when I started, and I ran it down. I'm like, here's this great, here's my pitch, and people are like, awesome. And then I'm like, here's my first draft, and they're like, what the heck? Red pen everywhere, and I was like, oh no. Yeah. But luckily, I did get, that those first bits of feedback were so helpful for me, because they were brutal, and it was exactly what I needed to oh wow, this is a whole world I'm stepping into, that there's so much more than just the creativity aspect of it.
Yeah, it is strange. I had a master's degree in English and creative writing, so I thought this is easy.
This is natural. No.
And then you turn in that first thing, especially to someone like Chris Perkins, right?
Oh my gosh.
Or some of those
Who
Wizards
is
of the Coast people.
the master red pen wielder.
Exactly. And some of the editors over there over the years, and you turn in your first thing and you get it back, and you're like, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was.
Ooh.
But it is. It's a process, right? The first time, no matter what you do, you have to go at it methodically and slowly. You have to learn the things that you thought you knew, but you have to unlearn a lot. And relearn a lot about writing in this style. And that's just for adventures, right? If you talk about designing monsters, if you talk about writing rules, that's even a whole...
There's so many moving pieces. And then what's wild is that, the industry is exploding. So many more people are involved in every single company, or every single person I've worked with has a radically different process of how things need to go and how they need to get done. So a huge part of learning to be a writer is also learning how to learn what everyone else is doing.
Right. Sure. Yeah. I mean, and even, I like to think from company to company, like you said, they have different styles or different things. If you work with Cobalt Press, you're going to get a little bit different feedback than if you write for another third party or for Wizards or whoever. So it's never, you're never done. You're never perfect.
You've never made it. You're never the perfect writer. You're always there's always more to learn, which is very exciting. I mean, for someone like me, I need those constant challenges and exciting learning opportunities, and writing Dungeons and Dragons is absolutely it, because every single adventure is a whole new set of challenges, or every single project. So I love it. I guess maybe that actually feeds into why I love DMing, because it's always, your players are hitting you with these new things right and left, and your stories are evolving and changing, and it's fast and it's fun and it's creative. So maybe it all feeds into each other, Shawn.
True, it's true. And, different players, just like different companies want different things, different players want different things. And even within a stable group, you play with the same 5 or 6 people week after week after week, each of them is different, so they keep you on your toes in different ways.
Oh, yeah.
And, God forbid you go out and you run a game in public, or run 5 or 6 times at a convention. Now you've got 5 or 6 different groups of 5 or 6 different players who all want something different. And it doesn't take long to realize that there are probably areas you are strong in as a DM or as a writer, and areas that you need to improve in.
Yeah, need some improvement.
Yep. Well, what I brought you on the show to talk about as our main topic is DMing for online versus face-to-face.
A very relevant topic now.
Since we are in the grip of this pandemic, and people are coming out of the woodwork saying, how do I play online? What tools should I use? Who can DM? How do I do this? I wanted to talk with someone with experience running online games.
Yep.
I am definitely not that person. So I wanted to get some insight on how we DMs who have never done it might get started. So, Celeste, I'm out calling on you to save the RPG world now.
No, I'm ready. I'm stepping up.
Okay. So is there any, kind of overall, information, insight that you could give DMs about how to make this work?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the first thing to keep in mind is that DMing online versus DMing in person is not as scary as you think it might be. I know it makes a lot of people nervous when they are like, oh no, I already have to worry about playing a game and doing this, and then now I have to press buttons, and just it's a whole thing. But it can be really easy and super streamlined. I promise if you start, you'll get used to it very, very quickly. Okay. And really the first thing to remember is just if you have good communication, everything will be fine, which is sort of the same as in person anyway. So, if you start out and you have your communication software on lock, really the rest will naturally follow.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of the things, if I talk about DMing in person with people, it's more than it's communication, but it's even more. It's managing others, right?
Yeah.
It's I will sit at a table, and if the DM is just kind of sitting back and waiting for people to talk, there's this uneasiness in a face-to-face game. So just as a DM, just looking people in the eye and saying, "Hi, how are you?"
Yeah.
Just establishing that I am the person who you can come to play this game, and I am in control here.
Yep.
Everything's okay, even if you're not.
Yeah.
If you pretend you are,
Yes,
that's
people
half the
appreciate
battle.
that.
Yeah. So that makes perfect sense then, that doing it online would be very similar, and you might not be able to look someone in the eye as much, but using whatever those tools are that you're using to communicate, to be the strong presenter, is a great opening tip for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and what's really great is that, like, webcams and microphones have come a long way. So, you don't have to break the bank to get something where, like, you all call in with your webcams and you can all look at each other in the face. Like, you do get really used to it. When you have your big screen up and everybody in the call around, it's very similar to sitting around a table. And, without breaking the bank, you can get a great $15 webcam and, sit there and look at everybody. And then, with microphones, too. I mean, bless the snowball microphone. Like, that brings sound to everyone, and it is a completely fine option. And again, you can get those for, like, around $20-$30, or just even use your headset mic. Chances are that you have something in your house right now that could serve as a webcam or a microphone that would be perfectly fine to play with. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of tools for delivering this experience, what do you think DM should get familiar with?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first off, you got to get your communication software, whatever that is. I really like using Zoom, just because it covers everything I need. It has built-in recording capabilities, but that does cost sort of a monthly fee. There are tons of great free options out there, though, like Discord. If you all haven't heard of Discord as a program, that is a phenomenal way to get started. It's sort of like I guess like a blog forum sort of chat room software, and included with that, they have great video chat options, so people can just call in, and then you can also have a chat going at the same time while you're playing. Also for Discord, you can jump into different like community servers. So like every actual play podcast and live stream probably has a Discord server. And what's great about that is those servers are full of people who want to play Dungeons and Dragons if you need a group, and then B, people who are so helpful and kind if you run into any trouble or need suggestions. So learning your softwares like that. And then, of course, getting something going where you can chat with your players outside of the game to coordinate scheduling and stuff. The Venture Maidens use WhatsApp, which is an app on your phone that, as long as you have Wi-Fi, you can text each other. So it doesn't cost money. You can talk to people internationally. You can have group chats that work via Apple or, Android, whatever. So start with your communication tools.
Right.
Step one.
Okay. So when you run games online, people talk about Fantasy Grounds or Roll20 and those kind of sort of tabletop things. Do you use those, or do you keep it more talky rather than more fiddly with things?
Yeah, so I use Theater of the Mind when we play, which means that we don't really use any virtual tabletops or anything. But I have a lot of friends who do use virtual tabletops, and they absolutely love those. It really does depend on the kind of group you're playing with, and also what kind of DM you are. Because if you're big on prep beforehand and you love making battle grids and maps and stuff, using something like Roll20 or like Astral Tabletop is a great way to build those great encounter maps. There is going to be a learning curve when teaching things like that to your players. Right. So just keep in mind if they're the type of party that would be excited by learning new tools like that, or if they would think, be a little bit scared by that. Yeah. But there are some really phenomenal options out there if you want to include a virtual tabletop space.
Yep. When you DM normally, one of the advices that you get, one of the pieces of advice you get is give your players tasks, right? You be the person that keeps treasure. You be the one that brings the food.
Counter,
right? But whatever. this is just one more thing you can have your players do,
That's
especially someone who is super into tech.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, hey, Jan, you are going to be the one that teaches us how to use Roll20.
Yeah,
You're the one
yeah.
that teaches us. And find the person who's most into that.
Oh, yeah.
And the best teacher of that, and turn them loose on that problem. And then you can, there's still a learning curve, but you're more able to focus on the other parts and be taught rather than have to teach that stuff.
Yeah, I would also say, while talking about virtual tools, I mean, D&D Beyond is a phenomenal resource.
Yes.
For online. What my group really likes about D&D Beyond is that they can, look at each other's character sheets and share what's going on, and they can just share information and have everything right there when we play. So, because you're already going to be, sitting at your desk with a microphone in your face, with a webcam in your face. So balancing a bunch of books on top of that may not work with your space constraints, which is definitely my situation. So having the books available on D&D Beyond, especially when I'm DMing, I can have all my monsters already open in tabs. It really streamlines the experience for me.
Yep. And I mean, as long as one person, usually the DM, has a subscription, then you can create a campaign.
Yeah.
And if you create a campaign, players, even if they don't have the books, if you have the books as the DM, then they have access to those same books.
Books. So I mean,
Super
Venture Maiden shares a big account, and they all have their character sheets in our account, and it's all stored in one place. And again, what's great is they have a ton of stuff up there for free. So even if you don't pay for anything, you have access to everything in the basic rules.
Yep.
Which is just great. Or you can just buy, piecemeal adventures. So if you want to do something like, the new Dragon of Icespire Peak adventure, you can just buy that. And then you have everything you need to run through that adventure already to go.
Yep. And if you as the DM, feel like splurging or take up a collection and get one of those big full subscription things, then basically your players have access to pretty much everything.
Yeah. I love, there's so many online groups that they pool together, and they'll split the costs of one of those, the legendary bundle or whatever, and then everybody is like, yay, this is our D&D account.
Right, our little library.
Oh, it's super fun.
It is. So would you say that most people who are used to face-to-face games might say, well, online is okay, but I don't. Are there any ways in which online games might actually be superior to face-to-face games?
Yeah, I mean, I love playing online for a few reasons. One, you just save a ton of money not having to travel around so much. Even if your friends are far away, you can all get together, and it's great. You can set up we're going to play for 2 hours on Saturday, 5 to 7, cool. That way you can actually do those 2 hours. So, you don't have to spend 30 minutes driving somewhere else, which makes it super, super easy for people. If it's really, you have really intense jobs, or, your kids are home with you, or, you just had a baby, or it's just a wild time in your life, having that little sacred window of time and really being able to stick to it is just, it's totally a godsend for busy folks. So that's a huge advantage. And then of course getting to play with, people all over the country or the world. I mean, I've had the privilege, I got to play with you, Shawn, online.
That's
that
true.
Never would have happened. We live, all the way across the US.
Yeah.
And what's phenomenal is that there are so many people out there who want to play Dungeons and Dragons. And the fact that you're online and that you can play online with these people just wildly opens up all your opportunities for gaming. Because, sometimes groups have to, put on pause for 2-3 months. Or, maybe you want more than just a monthly game of D&D. Online role-playing, actually lets you play as much as you want, because there are tons, people you can build groups from all over the place. So it just really opens up the inclusivity of the hobby.
True. The few times I've played online, one of the things I liked was the ability to talk to just one player without talking to the other players.
Yeah.
it's always that awkward if somebody makes the intelligence check to know the history, but they're in a separate room, and I just rather than having to leave the room or pass notes, just opening a little private chat and say, okay, by the way, you know this.
Here's your secret. Yeah,
it makes it a little more realistic.
Oh yeah,
in terms of the story that's going on.
Definitely,
I've always liked that playing online aspect.
Oh yeah. The whispers and little messages and stuff. You don't have to fold your piece of paper and slide it to your DM with the secret thing you want to do.
Yeah,
that's
very
totally true. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked about DMs and how to go about DMing online. What are some things that players can do to help their DM and the other players with this experience?
Yeah, I think, one of the temptations that people worry about is like, oh no, if you're playing online, you're already at your computer and maybe, you'll check out and like look at Twitter or look at Facebook while you're playing. I think as a player, you can, really try and respect the time that you have built into it and really do act as if like these people are sitting around the table with your friends and not like pulling up other tabs and getting distracted, especially when you start out, because you got to help your DM build confidence too, because it is sort of a weird thing to get used to, and like you said, Shawn, volunteering to take on some of the responsibilities of it. So like maybe there's one player who sends out your Zoom meeting link every week or whatever,
right,
and then just having really open communication about like when you can be there, when you can't be there, really making sure you stick to your schedule and commit to that. Because people are very scared of getting like ghosted or people not showing up. So, showing up and having a great attitude is just the number one thing players can do to help. And then also getting very friendly with your mute button is very important. So, because if you're going to be eating chips or you're going to be drinking, beer, mute your microphone because no one wants to hear it.
I am writing that down.
Yes, get very friendly with your mute button. All softwares ever make it very great. They're like, just mute it. Because there's something about hearing slurping over a microphone that's just so much worse than hearing it in person. As someone who edits podcasts, please trust me.
I definitely believe that. So it's funny because you think about people who talk about getting a campaign started, and one thing they always preach is have a session 0 where you create characters, where you talk about what kind of campaign you want, any house rules you might want to use, limits on things like violence or sexuality or things that you don't do or don't want in the game. You could roll learning the software right into that session 0.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than trying to play the first slot right away, take that time so you're not ruining an experience by having technical issues.
Yeah.
You're not ruining the game. You are working through a session 0 as part of that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's so great, and then most of the time people are just really excited to get to learn this new skill. Because learning how to call in for a Dungeons and Dragons game opens up you can learn how to call in with your other friends or learn a ton of stuff. I mean, it honestly, once you open the door to online gaming, it's just this whole wide world. You're like, oh man, maybe I can stream video games online. Maybe I understand now how to participate in these cool live stream chats. I understand what people are doing. It's usually just a very exciting experience. Yeah, but giving the time and space to let people learn how to do it is great.
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna ask you a question. I hopefully you have a good answer for this.
Okay. Oh no.
Say
what if I don't?
Well, what if you don't? I'm sure you can make something up. Well, I didn't prepare you for this question, but it just popped in my head because you were talking about streaming your stuff.
Oh yeah.
And if you're just a DM and you have players and you want to do your own thing, and that's perfect. Say you do want to stream. How would you go about, not on the technical side because that's a whole other episode.
Can of worms, yeah.
But choosing the players that you would want, how would you go about that? What sort of things should you be thinking about if you were thinking in that area.
Sure. Yeah. So I talk about this a lot. I write a blog series over on Kobold Press that's all about the audience and beyond, which is all about like how to stream and like podcast games, how to improve that generally in all aspects. But yeah, choosing your players is probably the single most important part of if you do want to stream or make a podcast. Put your game on display. The number one thing you need for your players, the number one thing you need to look for before anything else, is that they're responsible and that they will show up. Number one.
Okay, I've just checked all my people off.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Don't start with, oh my God, this person is like so funny, they should be on my podcast. No, the people who are the best for podcasts are the ones who will be there at your every other week recording, who will help you with the project, who believe in the project, and who understand, the responsibilities of performing in front of other people. Those are going to be the players you want in your game. And if you can get a party of all people like that, then you're already so far ahead of other streams and podcasts out there. So the people who believe in the work, who will do the work, and who will love the work, number one. And then number two is people who get along. There are a lot of different personality types in this world. And you need to make sure that your group can grow into a party of people who trust each other, enough to have those vulnerable role-playing moments, or if they like need to pause and ask questions, like having a group that will be able to do that and support each other. That's your number two priority. Okay. So people who can do that together, who can be a team. Because again, it's very tempting to fill your cast with like all-star players, or like right. people who are just so like funny, or they're famous online or whatever. But the thing is, like, that's not the most important thing. The team right. is the important thing. Yeah. I think a lot of people, at the end of the day, Dungeons and Dragons is cooperative storytelling. You're right. making a thing together, and having one strong or like leading person just isn't going to work for this format.
Right. And you want consistency.
Yeah.
I would say, you do want the same people. You don't want to be rotating people in and out every other show.
No.
Because
or if you do, you need a core group of people who can absolutely like work with guest players who come in or whatever, but you do need that core rock group that will really be the heart of your show.
Mm-hmm. Is there a best practices? I'm going into my software background here for like how often to put a show out, or a schedule. Is once a week too much? Is once every 2 months too little, or does it go from one to the other on what's best?
Yeah, I mean, again, it definitely depends on your group. Like, if you have a group that can like play every week, and you have somebody who can edit that podcast and get it out every week, and you are comfortable doing that, that's awesome. But I generally find that if you're someone like me, who has had a full-time job the majority of the time I've done Venture Maidens, and then also doing editing and running the game on the side, publishing something every other week is generally what works for people. Because weekly, I've seen a lot of shows, they're like every Friday, new episode, and that drops off very quickly all the time and goes to every other week, inevitably.
So that seems to be the cycle that fits most people's lives at this point.
Yeah, because, even after, like, it's, you got to remember there's so much background work that goes in. It's like your dungeon master has to write the games, and then you have to, like, get together and actually play at this certain time. And then after that, you have to hand off the audio to an editor. Or luckily for streaming, it's a little bit lighter on those duties. So, like, doing a weekly game is more feasible than doing, like, a podcast. But yeah, there's a lot of background work, and you always want this to be a joy, because the minute it becomes like a stressful, horrible, like other job, you'll quickly find that it will unravel, and your group won't want to get together, and all of a sudden you're not playing this game anymore.
Yeah, it's true. So in terms of the content of your adventure that you're running online, and you can answer this either for if you're going to stream or even just for DMs running for a group. Yeah. Is there anything you should like avoid, or is there anything that you should highlight that makes it better when you're running an online game?
Sure. I think the main thing I always advise people on is like whatever your show is, whatever your brand is, really know what that is, decide what it is, and commit to it. So there's not one thing in particular that I would recommend, like, you know, like a combat heavy game or a dungeon heavy game or whatever. Generally there's no answer, but whatever it is for your group, decide what that is, and then be clear about it and always deliver that.
Okay.
So, you know, if you want to make a crunchy show that's all about kicking down doors and fighting monsters episode after episode in these giant dungeons, that's awesome. Like, there will be an audience for that. Just make sure you stick to that. Or, likewise, if you want to do, you know, a family-friendly game that's all about, like, role-playing and, you know, not using combat to solve challenges, you know, decide that, commit to that, and then all of your branding should reflect that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's more about consistency than it is about any particular style or any particular theme.
Yeah. And I mean, what's great is, like, there are so many people that are hungry for this content. You will have an audience for whatever your thing is. There will probably be people out there who want to know what that is. But, you know, in this time in the world, there are a lot of streams and podcasts out there. So how you set yourself apart is by having your thing and, you know, very clearly playing to your thing.
Sure. Awesome. So is there any other advice or any other thoughts you have on this whole DMing online topic?
Yeah, I mean, I always say, like, you know, a lot of people feel lonely and isolated right now, but probably a bunch of people are listening to this going like, oh man, but I don't have a D&D group, so like what? There are people out there who want to play games with you. Get out there, get on Twitter, get on social media, get into Discord servers. Almost every Discord server has like a looking for a group section where people just want to put games together. And the thing is too, like, if you want to play Dungeons and Dragons but you don't have anyone to play with, learn how to DM, and then I promise you there will be people who want to come and play in
You
your
will
games.
be the most popular kid in the schoolyard, no doubt.
There is a shortage of DMs out there in this world. And the thing is, like, DMing is really, really exciting, and it feels scary, but like anything else in the world, you've got to do it a couple times before, you know, you feel like you get the hang of it. But, you know, now is the perfect time to, like, pick up the Dungeon Master's Guide, you know, read about what the experience is like, or, you know, watch a couple shows online and see how they go about it, and then take what you like, throw away what you don't, and build something for yourself.
Awesome. Well, I think that is a perfect way to end that segment, and I will put links in our show notes to the Audience Beyond on Cobalt Press, as well as to some of the other links with Celeste stuff.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on, and thank you everyone out there for listening. I want to thank our listeners who are supporting us via Patreon. If you want to help out, you can go to patreon.com/MMP. Even for just $1, you can help us with our hosting costs, and we do send extra content to our supporters. Or if you just want to talk about us online, you know, we appreciate, Down with D&D appreciates you saying that you listen to the show. Talk about us on social media, and we love you for it. Celeste, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, so the best place to see what I'm doing right now is to follow me on Twitter at @CConowitch, yeah, that's probably the best place. But if you want to see the whole catalog of my work, everything I'm doing, all the podcasts and streams I'm involved in, you can check out CelesteConowitch.com. And, of course, keep your eye out on the DMs Guild. I'm one of your guild adepts for this year, and a bunch of stuff is coming down the pipeline, so stay tuned, friends.
Yes. I know Celeste is working on a lot of things that we couldn't talk about.
I
would start to ask, I'm like, wait, I can't talk about that. How about, no, I can't talk about that either.
Let's just say it's going to be a very exciting year.
Yes, it will be. I'm looking forward to all the stuff that you're working on. And you can find me on Twitter at Shawn Merwin, or you can go to the forums at forums.misdirectedmark.com. Down with D&D is a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. So, hey, Celeste, what are we going to do now?
Go kill some monsters online.
Woo!
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
I'm down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
You're the best.